Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Susan Lynn. I'm a psychic medium, and today I have an amazing astrologer. I know I always say this, but listen, you guys, I vet these people. This guy, Anthony Perrotta, he has done readings for me. He's truly amazing. But what's really important about why you should tune in and watch us today is because we have just been talking, and he's been telling me things that help all make sense of everything we're experiencing, the polarization, the tariffs, the everything that we are experiencing right now in the United States, and this is a worldwide energy as well, is happening for a reason, and it has an astrological meaning, an astrological kind of place that it's coming from. And this is America's wake up call, right? This is our wake up call. We're kind of getting
Hmm.
shaken awake. And so Anthony's here to help us understand that. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
Susan, I'm so happy to be here. I'm wonderful. I am excited to chat with you today a little bit about the current astrology, the upcoming astrology, and maybe make sense of some of the chaos that we're living through currently. Yeah.
I would say
So,
chaos is a good word.
yeah, what's the best way to say that without sounding insane? You know?
It's kind of insanity.
So, I think a really good place to start in thinking about the word chaos is really understanding possibly one of the major transits that we've temporarily started in 2025, but we are going to see fully take form in 2026 and for 7 years following that. Okay. And it doesn't mean that we are going to feel this chaos for 7 years. I really want to be clear there. I think the energy that we're in, I mean, it's definitely here, but I don't think it's going to last almost a decade. I don't know how you feel in comparison, but I don't think it's going to last almost a
No,
decade.
no.
No.
Because I think some of the things we talked about, where we are now is kind of in this energy of the Revolutionary War, the Civil War,
Hmm.
World War II. That's the energy that is kind of on replay for us right now. And we
Hmm.
certainly feel that with the polarization. But some of the other things you're going to talk to us about is some of the innovations that are going to
Hmm.
come from the same energy. So I feel like we're going to work through this in the first half of this year, next year, and then
Hmm.
we're gonna nail things down, and then we're gonna start moving more towards some of these other innovations,
Hmm.
revolutionary energy, really. But it's going to switch, I think, from politics into technology and some other
Hmm.
things. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I think that's brilliant. So I think it's really important to understand you talked about like cycles, right? Astrology is the study of cycles. And so where we are right now is that I truly believe we can use astrology to anticipate, not predict. And so what I mean by this is that we can look back at what's happened in certain time frames, like you talked about the Revolutionary War, Civil War, World War II. What was going on astrologically? What was going on in the zeitgeist? And then how does that correlate to now? Does it have to be the same? Can we make different choices, right? So this is where the anticipation comes in. We know we can anticipate similar energy, but do the outcomes have to be the same? Do we have to deal with the same sort of things? Not necessarily, you know? And because astrology is the study of cycles, we begin to tell a new story. The idea is to break cycles to make new ones. And I think one of the most important cycles coming out of those three time periods that you mentioned, so, the Revolutionary War, Civil War, and World War II, is Uranus was in the sign of Gemini. And I think you talked about innovation, you talked about technology, you talked about polarization. All of these things fall under the umbrella of Uranus and specifically Uranus and Gemini. Uranus in mythology is connected to Prometheus. And I think that's really important to call out, specifically in Greek mythology, I should say, because Prometheus enlightened humanity, right? The myth of Prometheus was that he was a Titan. He went up to Mount Olympus. He stole fire from the gods and brought it to the darkness on earth. There was no fire, there was no light on earth. Brought it to humans and literally enlightened them. And from that moment forward, he became this Titan, this god, this pinnacle of the people, right? And in that, we think about all of the things, all the advancements that he brought to humanity as a result, technological advancements, mathematics, science, all falling under the realm of Uranus. The other interesting piece to this is that Prometheus was married to Pandora. Okay. And Pandora had a box, as we know. And in that box, she was gifted curiosity. There's Gemini and sort of all of these different flights that went along with humanity. So he brought enlightenment, she brought flight, but she also brought hope because at the bottom of Pandora's box is hope. So Uranus also is connected to Aquarius, which is the sign of hope. So both of these mythologies are interesting. Prometheus ends up getting damned to be chained to a rock and have his liver pecked out by an eagle every day of his life. It regrows. Yeah, it's terrible. But he becomes this martyr, and but also a confidant to Zeus, right? So the king of gods, who will go and chat with Prometheus for his own visions and prophecies that he has moving forward. So with that being said, Uranus also shows where we have revolution, where we have prophecy, vision, and foresight, and how we support our community. I want to give that basis because as we talk about some of the historical, political things that are going on, I want people to keep hope, vision, and progress in the back of their minds, even if it feels like we're regressing right now.
Hope,
So,
vision, and progress. I love that. That's amazing.
mhm. So when we think about Uranus as an energy, it is the first, what we call generational planet. So there's this really interesting trajectory that we take astrologically through our charts, but also through the sky. Saturn represents the last planet that we can see with the naked eye in the sky. We don't need a telescope. Okay. We then cross what I call the Bridge of Chiron, which is an asteroid that literally sits physically or orbits physically between Saturn and Uranus, which so in Chiron is the wounded healer, right?
Yeah,
It's
right.
this oracle. It teaches us to move and do things with our hands and to have progress to heal forward. And then we enter the realm of Uranus, which is about that progress, that hope, that vision, that revolutionary energy, that awakening and rebellion. And historically speaking, Uranus has often brought rebellion in our context of life, specifically Uranus and Gemini. And this is because Gemini deals with communication, it deals with connection, it deals with people, it deals with trade, transportation, and being an air sign, it also has a connection to technology, right? So when we think about Uranus moving through Gemini, Gemini is a mutable sign. It's the twins. So we find ourselves oscillating, bouncing back and forth, moving between two extreme energies. And the rebellion actually comes from the middle, right? So it's kind of the pulling of people together, not apart. So it's in the process of trying to rip us apart that we end up building stronger connections with one another. The thing that comes to mind is class consciousness, right? Where we recognize as people that we are very much so more, it's going to be the haves versus the have nots, not my ideology versus your ideology. And we're seeing this happen right now in the United States, but we've seen it happen historically as well. If we think back to the Revolutionary War in particular, right? A lot of that dealt with the idea of ownership and taxation and who had what and who didn't have what. British colonialism, right? They had, and then the people of the Americas had not. But also the people of the Americas had, and the indigenous people, right, that they harmed had not, right? Well, they had, and then we took. So
Right.
the idea here, though, is that the rebellion came, right? So you form alliances with unlikely people to be able to push away, right, the things that are lording over you, that have power over you,
Yeah.
to create something new. Pluto was also in Aquarius at that time during the or just was entered Aquarius during the Revolutionary War, which is where what we have right now too, which is why I bring this up because it's the power to the people. That's a once in 250, 248 year cycle. So that's a larger cycle. Uranus and Gemini, it returns every 84 years. So that's like a much smaller cycle that we can digest and take pieces in. You know what I mean? So when we think about this Uranus and Gemini transit, the rapidness in which things change, like you talked about, it's going to be a year and a half, 2 years, not seven. We'll see other progresses and changes happen within that 7 year time frame. If we look back historically in World War II, you know, Uranus and Gemini brought the United States entrance into World War II. World War II did not start during Uranus and Gemini. That's an important distinction. Okay. And I say this because the US, its natal chart, its birth chart, has Uranus and Gemini in it. So it needed that activation to its own Uranus, its own return, to pull it forward into this world war. Where you remember, FDR very much so wanted to not
Yeah,
be a part of the
that's
conflict,
right.
right?
That's right.
Very much so wanted to be a supporting player to the Allies, but did not necessarily want to be involved in a world war. Okay, tried to feign neutrality as a an emerging power overall. It was the bombing of Pearl Harbor, right? The attack on Pearl Harbor that started the entrance of the US into World War II. During that time, so many technological advancements came up, if we think about it, and especially as a result of that, for better or for worse. We can think about the nuclear arms that came out of that time frame. We think about specifically the atomic bomb, right? Was created with Uranus and Gemini. We can think about the new transportation that was created. So, and the rebranding and exaltation of certain modes of transportation, new U-boats, right? Submarines. We had the Manhattan Project. We had cryptography, excuse me, coming forward, right? Being able to decode, decipher messages, Gemini communication. We had the first general use digital computer being created during this time to help decode messages too. We had the start of the space age and the beginning of the space race with the V2 rocket in 1944 during this time, and the first radar bouncing waves off of the moon during this time as well. And not saying that this is going to happen, but could. We had the Roswell incident happen with aliens and the first encounters during this time as
Wow.
well.
No, I think it's going to happen. I got chills. Nice.
Yeah.
That is
So
fascinating.
Yeah, so when we think about a lot of the historical things that came out of that period, a lot of the technological advancements, it's really important to understand that we might feel like we're in a time of polarizing and being pulled apart, but every single one of those instances, we unified, right? And we found the middle ground. So through the American Revolution, we unified as a country, right? We created the United States, essentially the Declaration of Independence. In the Civil War, right? We thought the Civil War was fought under the guise of slavery, right? Freeing slaves. But that's not the reality of the Civil War, right? It was the haves and have nots. It was about land ownership and money and
Yeah.
greed, right? It's interesting to note that the sign before Gemini is Taurus, which means that Uranus travels Taurus before it gets to Gemini, and Gemini is the sign of ownership, values, security, and resources. So that is the basis of what creates the polarization of Uranus and Gemini. But eventually we unified, right? There was a try for secession, but we came back together. We think about World War II, right? It was something that unified the country, right? Even in its own, going through its own issues as well. We were coming off of the heels of Prohibition, right? The Great Depression, right? There's another economic downfall that happened right before polarization. hmm Haves and have-nots. Class consciousness was really coming forward. But
Yeah.
also the birth of that also came out during that period right before Uranus and Gemini was the New Deal, Social Security, right? All of these really important in the US social programs that supported the American people, helped unify them, make them economically stronger, right? So, fast forward to today. Here we are with Uranus and Gemini. We're having economic issues, right? We are seeing Gemini rules trade. We're seeing hikes on tariffs, right? We are, in some ways, in conflict with our own government, right? We are finding ourselves at extreme ends with each other, fighting fake wars with ourselves within this country, not externally, but within this country, instead of fighting the true war, which is what a lot of people are trying to bring to the surface, which is the billionaires versus, right? So it's the haves versus the have nots,
Right.
once again. That's the true polarity. It's not MAGA versus, the leftist versus the Bernie bro versus the moderate. Yeah, that exists, right? Because they all uphold their own ideologies that keep us distracted from the bigger picture. Because Gemini is very much so about distraction, right? Look over here while I'm doing this thing over here. Should be of no surprise that Donald Trump was born with Uranus and Gemini in his own natal chart, right? The master of look over here while I do this over here, you know?
Right. Right.
So he activates the Uranus that we have in the United States natal chart. He is an agent of chaos. And there's a disruption that kind of happens here where he is trying to confuse us and keep us polarized so that we cannot see what's really important and what we should really be doing within this country, right? So, thoughts?
Yes, 100%. So interesting, so fascinating. So you basically described why we're here, what we're doing, why we're experiencing again. And it's so interesting that DJT shows up with the exact energy signature, the exact astrology signature, the toolkit that he
Hmm.
needs to activate the United States of America's Uranus in Gemini.
Yeah.
How interesting that you said also we didn't get activated into World War II until we had Uranus and Gemini. So it just
Yeah.
seems like, yes, this is chaos. But what I love about astrology is it gives us some framework. It gives us a little
Hmm.
bit more science. I mean, you can point to all these historical milestones and link them through astrology. To me,
Yep.
that's science at that point. I have causation, right? I can point to it. So now that we're here and we've got this
Hmm.
chaos agent doing the chaos, and I think it's also interesting because what my guides always said was always about community, always about community. So I think it's interesting how you describe the polarization pulling us apart actually causes the strange bedfellows. It actually
Hmm.
causes us to find unlikely people to say,
Hmm.
in the end, like you said, maybe you're a Bernie bro, maybe I'm a moderate. We got to get together because there's a bigger
Hmm.
thing here that we need to work towards. It's bigger than just my or your
Hmm.
ideology. It's bigger than that. So as you sit today, why do
Hmm.
you feel, because I'm not an astrologer, right? I'm working off energy. I feel like there is a quickness. And again, you did mention about Gemini being very quick, but I feel
Hmm.
like there's a quickness that's gathering steam. It hasn't been
Hmm.
happening, but now it's gathering steam between now and 26, the end of 26, going into the first half of 27. I feel like we're leaping over a lot of these
Hmm.
things. We're literally consuming the information, coming up with ways to deal with it very quickly. Does that make any sense astrologically?
It does, for several reasons. So, why I think this is happening so swiftly is Gemini has a relationship to communication, period, right? And the way that we transport communication. If we think back to the invention of the Pony Express, I think was 1860, which was the precursor to postal service. It took a long time to receive communication between different places, right? Then we fast forward to World War II. Then we have Morse code and radio waves, right? Sound waves. The first sound recording was also created with Uranus and Gemini. So that's also really interesting in the 18, I think it was like 1859 or 1858. But then we were using kind of that same technology in World War II. So we were receiving faster information, but nothing is as swift as the information that we receive on social media, right?
Sure.
So the reason why I think things are starting to build and move much faster, one, we're learning lessons, I'm hoping, a little bit quicker than we have in the past, right?
Yeah.
Because history does repeat itself, and at some point we have to go, well, we've done this before, you know? The second thing is because of social media. I actually, I have a love-hate relationship with it, but I think we all do. And I think we're realizing that because Gemini rules information, we're realizing that there are a lot of media outlets that are bought and paid for by certain entities, right? So there's misinformation, disinformation, and social media has shown up, although it can be fantastical and farcical, it also is very real and very in the moment. And it is hitting us with information left and right, sometimes as a distraction or it's overwhelming, right? We're in the digital overwhelm,
Yes.
but it's also telling us what is happening currently, right? It is helping us trend forecast. It is helping us stay updated on the news. It's helping us stay in the know. Like I think about the flotilla with Gaza, right? Like there were updates, live streams. Like when could you have live streamed history before,
Right.
right?
Right.
So
Never.
never. It's in our
Never.
hands. It's in our basically in our brains. We're thinking about it all the time.
Wow.
So I think things will move quickly because of that. Also, social media was created when the nodes were in um it was created while the nodes were in Virgo and Pisces. The nodes are in Virgo and Pisces again now.
Again.
Yeah. And so Uranus is squaring, kind of activating those nodes. So that's another super speed kind of thing, right? We're digesting information, South Node in Virgo, with rapid pace. And then in Pisces, we're looking for the big picture. What's the overarching thought, right? The other piece to this is that the nodes in the middle of 2026 are going to move into Leo and Aquarius with the North Node in Aquarius, power to the people, right? Community. And that is the modern ruler of Uranus, right? Is Aquarius. So there's a modern relationship rulership there. And then it will work towards us like building to harmonious aspects to the Uranus and Gemini. So we're going to go from feeling like we're metabolizing too much too fast and needing something to change to actually gaining a little bit of that clarity and what that change is going to look like. And at some point, the North Node is going to move closer to Pluto, which is going to be the evolution, the revolution, right? And sort of that change that we seek overall, right? I also think, too, the reason why things are going to move really quickly is because there are a few things that get us to hold hands across the aisle. Okay. One of those is the Epstein files. Everyone on all sides,
Sure.
unless you're a have, unless you're in a position of power, right? Here we are, have versus have nots. Unless you're a have, everyone on both sides wants those released. They don't care whose name is on it. They want them released, right? That's
Right.
coming back to bite them.
Yeah.
And the whole Epstein situation happened when the nodes were in Gemini. And like that whole, not, it didn't happen, but like the one of the last times Epstein was so in the news like that was when the nodes were in Gemini and Sagittarius. So now Uranus is activating that. So it's really blowing that up. The other thing is, or that we're seeing, are things like Luigi Mangione, right? Where people are like, oh, there's greed, there's corporate greed. Doesn't matter where you fall on the political spectrum. If you are not someone who is in a position of monetary power, you believe in corporate greed. You know it exists, right? So those are the two unifying factors that are going to let us progress much faster. We're already seeing break aparts even within the MAGA. Think about Marjorie Taylor Greene,
Yeah. Sure.
right?
Yeah.
The third thing that is another breakaway is what's happening in Gaza. And this is really important to bring up because when the US entered World War II, there was already an ongoing genocide happening, right? Think about it. They were exterminating, not we. They were exterminating Jewish people, queer people, gypsies, Romani people, right? To have a better, more perfect race. We know that our man in power has taken a lot out of the playbook of said leader at that time. Not going to use their name, but we all know who that is.
Yeah.
And is, again, not getting involved in the genocide happening in another country, right? Again, the US is trying to stay out of it or actually perpetuate it in this case.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of pushback internally within this country as well, that we're
Right.
realizing we're on the wrong side of history
Right.
and we need to course correct. We need
Right.
to find that neutral. We need to find that middle, not neutrality, but we need to find that middle ground where we come together and support, you know, because we're global citizens. That's why I think things are going to move faster.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. I love the idea of the social media. You're right. It's like you're right. The minute she apparently they were arrested. So we knew, like literally, I was on a live video
Mhm.
last night and we knew instantly through the chat that it happened. And when you have that kind of
Mhm.
instantaneous connection to world events, this is a
Mhm.
little boat in the middle of nowhere, right? This is not
Mhm.
a big New York City or something. I can react and then we can talk about it and we can have this kind of energetic response, right? So that's
It's true.
fantastic. Fantastic. So that just means I just see us gobbling up this
Mhm.
energy and moving at twice the
We're
speed.
metabolizing it like this. You
Yes,
know,
metabolizing it.
the South Node is sometimes associated with excretion, and Virgo deals with the metabolism and the digestive system. That's where the
Oh,
South Node
right.
is right now.
And
And
Virgo is
so,
in the South Node. Okay.
yeah, so we are metabolizing things extremely quickly. Virgo also deals a lot with labor. And one of the
Yeah,
things that
orderly service, like
yes,
get it
it
done,
is.
project oriented. So Virgo is like, we're going to consume this waste. We're going to
Hmm.
consume all this bad stuff. We got you. Don't, I'm a Virgo, so I can say,
Yeah.
so, we got you. We're just going to over here shovel and shit, I mean,
Hmm.
that's what we're doing. That we're doing it twice as fast because Virgo's always very, uh,
It's true.
you know,
Efficient.
efficient.
It's very efficient. And what's going to help push this forward, I actually think, are unions. Labor unions are going to be really helpful.
Interesting.
And because Virgo deals and rules the labor unions. And if we think about what's happening globally in Italy, it's the labor unions that are putting pressure on the government and they're shutting down ports so that way they can't send anything to Israel, right?
I just read that.
Hmm. And, it's the labor unions in the US that are standing up mostly for the people in Gaza, for the people of
Right.
Palestine, right? So it's also labor unions that are supporting, a lot of the work of bringing people together because you can belong to a union and belong to any political party, you know?
Right. That's right.
And so, Donald Trump did not get a lot of the union support,
No.
right? And he still doesn't have it.
I
And
think he's
so
losing it.
yeah, and so again, it goes back to that power of the people, right? And unions are going to teach people how to unionize as well.
Wow. So you see unions growing in power,
Yeah,
actually.
I do. Because that's how we ensure that the haves do not continue to have power over the have-nots
Okay. Because we have power when we gather together, right?
when we come
And
together.
you just keep alluding to it, but like you just said, unions could be Republicans and Democrats, independents, it could be anybody, but our shared, idea right now is that we have to protect us as workers. It's the Venn diagram. We're
Hmm.
in the middle of the Venn diagram. The middle is the community, right? So that is
Yeah.
so fascinating. So going forward, you see um, changes in the postal service because you
Yeah.
you said, hey, last time this happened, we had Pony Express, right? So
Hmm.
you see some changes in how we. I mean, we're not really getting so much mail anymore. We're getting we don't even like emails, right? Well, I don't even know what
It's
we're
true.
getting. I don't even text, maybe. I don't know how we'll be communicating with each other.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how we receive correspondence, and like what the evolution of correspondence is going to look like. It'll be interesting how AI comes into that conversation for better or for worse as
Sure.
well. If we are going to, and this is where like I think unions, like we need a human element and a human touch. I do think humans will always supersede. I want to be clear, right? No matter how much technology tends to evolve, we as humans crave each other, we crave community. Um, so it'll be interesting to see, we had the Pony Express. Again, we had like Morse code and cryptography kind of coming up well, cryptography in particular coming up in World War II. That was another form of communication. So, like, what's this new form? How are we receiving information from one another? Is it social media? Does social media create its own mail, right? Is there like meta mail or TikTok mail or whatever it is, right? Again, for better or for worse. The other things that could be really interesting could be us falling back on old ways, right? Because sometimes we go back and rediscover something that we didn't know was important or existed before. So I talked about the first sound recording being done in Uranus and Gemini, and the first underground railway opening up in London in Uranus and Gemini. So it would be really interesting to see if we go back to like radio style kind of
Oh yeah.
correspondences, right? Receiving mail that way, right? Getting like verbal mail instead of like, we're already also seeing like the digitization of mail. I don't know if you're signed up for like the US Postal
Yes.
Service's
Yeah.
informed mail, right?
Right.
Informed delivery,
Right.
Uranus and Gemini being informed about
Right.
your delivery. Um, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the postal service changes. I wouldn't even be surprised if it fragments, actually,
Yeah.
in some way, because again, that polarization of Gemini, if um if it gets fragmented in some way, I talked about how FDR created a lot of social programs. A lot of those social programs are going away. A lot of those protections are going away. US Postal Service is obviously funded by the government. Donald Trump has been after the US Postal Service since his first election. Also worth noting that he was elected when the nodes were in Virgo and Pisces, which they're in right now, last time, but they were inverted. So it was the North Node in Virgo, South Node in Pisces. So we get a chance to kind of do this presidency differently.
So we can undo it. We're seeing everything from opposite ends, which also makes it feel chaotic, right?
Uh-huh.
It's another reason to feel chaotic.
It's true. It's very true. So it'll be interesting. The mobile telephone service, the first tape recorder, and I think holographs were created with Uranus and Gemini in the past as well in the 40s, 1940s. So all of those things are also going to expand going forward in technology. I always joked about on Star Wars, like when they would hold out this thing and there'd be like a little holograph message that you would get.
I was
Might
going
be
to
close.
say, when you were talking earlier, I said I can see us having a holographic communications where the
Mhm.
person up. I don't think this is in 1 year or 2 years. It could be 10 years, but I see the holographic version of that person communicating to me in a 3D
Mhm.
way. But also talking about things that are happening now. If you guys have traveled recently using your passport, you don't even have to get that thing out. They're scanning your face and know who you are
Mhm.
before you don't even have to pull the passport out. So
It's true.
that's a new version of photography and IDing and all those things that kind of dovetails what you're talking about.
Well, and the first aerial photography was taken during Uranus and Gemini as well. Moving pictures is another big one. Um, Uranus and Gemini also saw um, the formation of really important literatures too, that actually ended up having predictive qualities to where we are today.
Are you
One of
talking
the
about 1984? Are you
it was
talking about Big
it was
Brother? Are you talking
no
about Ray,
1984 was
Ray
written during
Bradbury?
Uranus and
Okay.
yep, it was and Ray Bradbury. Both of them were written with Uranus and Gemini. Both of them.
What? So these
Hmm.
things can happen now. That's something else we want you to understand, that all the things he's talking about happening in the past can
Hmm.
happen now in a new way. So you might
Hmm.
see a new author come out and write something that ends up that we think, my God, this is crazy, but it actually has some sort of predictive energy to it.
Hmm. Exactly. So, when we think about ways that we can emerge or kind of come out of this, the first color photograph was also created with Uranus and Gemini. That's what it was, not motion picture. It was color photograph. And electrical engineering, the founder of modern electrical engineering, came forward during this time too. This is why I think you talked about like having photographic IDs, right? The real ID being a big thing that's coming forward
There
too,
you go.
right? In
Yep,
in the US, there's going to be a lot of like profiles based on our
there
face.
is.
Yep, we're going to be able to enter places with our face, with our hands. Gemini rules the
Yes.
hands, you know, with our fingerprints. Then we're going to have to also then think about the duality of what that means with
Yeah.
Gemini, right? What are we giving away? What are we signing away? What isn't
Yeah.
ours? What belongs to us? What doesn't belong to us, right? This is
Right.
also the AI likeness, so the misinformation, right? This is where
Yeah.
artificial intelligence can come in and we can kind of build a resistance if we want from this. I think at some point there will be a resistance to AI in some capacity. I don't think it's going to blow up in the immense way that everyone thinks it's going to. I think it's actually going to end up backfiring at some point.
Yeah. Yes,
I
I
don't,
agree.
yeah. And then I also think from a more positive like standpoint in terms of like technology, I think we are going to start to do really deep space explorations.
Hmm.
I think we are really going to want to communicate and connect with anything else that's out there because we're going to
Okay.
realize that we're not alone, you know? I think we're going to uncover more information about it too, you know?
Okay.
Area 51, I think, is going to have another. If you remember during the pandemic, Area 51 had a moment,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Uh-huh. With
All
the
that's going to
nodes.
come up. All of that UFO, alien,
Hmm.
extraterrestrial, whatever you want to call it, information is going to come up. It's going to have a new heyday.
Yep, we're going to see revolutionary ideas around literature, around music as well. Because I talked about the first sound recording, but I also didn't mention that LPs and vinyls were also created under Uranus and Gemini.
Wow. Wow. So we could have a whole new way that we listen to music
Hmm.
be created during this time.
Yep. So Gemini rules the hands, the arms, and the shoulders, but it's also auditory. So we're going to
Interesting.
see what comes forward. The other thing I've been thinking about from like I have a background in fashion and from a fashion perspective is a lot of wearable technology and like that exploding in a huge way, which we
Like
already
the
have.
The Google glasses.
Yes, we already see smartwatches. How about we're already starting to see smart rings? The
Wow.
Aura ring. But then again, on the flip side, people selling their data, so that we have to be careful, things like that. But like, smartwatches used to be a 007, like, oh ha ha, the fact that
That's
I could
true.
talk on my
That's
watch,
true. That's actually
but
true. Now people do it all the time. And
all the
actually
time.
people use it for their health, right? Like
Mhm.
their heart is monitored or whatever. So that's actually helpful. Interesting.
Yeah. So, Uranus and Gemini will help us it's all about balance. Gemini is all about the balance to me, not oscillating between the extremes. So, from like even working with technology, it's about becoming a friend to technology, not technology becoming the have while we're the have nots, but also not us allowing technology to become the enemy either. You have
Right.
to build a relationship with it.
That's right.
And that's how you have mindful consumption, which, if we think about the South Node in Virgo, that excretion, that mindfulness, it's all about mindful consumption.
Wow, that is brilliant. I agree with you 100%. I do think AI is going to reach some limit. It's going to limit
Mhm.
itself.
Mhm.
It's going to tap out, and it's not going to be, I mean, it's very useful. Don't get me wrong. I think it's
Mhm.
very useful, but we've also got to look at the environmental impacts and the
Mhm.
societal impacts of these big data centers being placed in poor areas. I mean,
Mhm.
this all things that go back to community, right? And haves and have
Yep.
nots, right? We put that data center in your community because you don't have anything, you don't have any power. Well, this is
Mhm.
what they're going to be surprised about, because we
Mhm.
have a lot of power and we're about to connect with each other and create that power.
I totally agree with you. I think, I think we're going to become our own sources of reformed education, our own sources of media, our own sources of
Yes,
resistance, right? It's going
yes,
to be people. And
that's right.
I think online learning isn't done. I think it's about to expand and grow in a very big way.
Yeah.
I think education as a whole, those institutions are
Right,
changing.
right.
It's no because Gemini wants things to move quickly. It's no longer going to be about the 4-year degree, right? It's going to be
Oh,
about
wow.
specialization.
Right.
What are you specialized in? What's your
Quick.
niche? Uh-huh.
Nick, right. That's why we're moving through this so quickly. I get it now. But
Yeah.
also, you guys, don't worry, because in the past, when you specialized, you've marketed yourself out of a job because you
Yeah.
specialize so much that when that job is no longer there,
Hmm.
but here's the difference. Because it's moving quickly, you're going to specialize and then you're going to pivot. If that doesn't work, you're going to pivot and go over here and go over there. It's not about the 1950s and 60s and 70s where we were focused on one track, we were at one job.
Hmm.
Those days are over.
Gone.
I really feel like if you want to make the best out of your life, whether you're 85 or 15, it's about pivoting. It's about
Hmm.
understanding that you're not stuck, that you can change your mind, that you can change your circumstances. And that's what I think this Gemini energy is going to help us do. It's going to help us say, that's not working. Turbocharged, we're going to give you a new direction.
That's the positive to Gemini, right? Is that it moves.
I
There
tend
are
to
I
look
know
at the positive.
I do. Well, I do too, and I love Gemini energy. I think it's fantastic, and it moves through things with extreme swiftness because it knows what's for it, what isn't for it, and it's not. It's willing to try everything. I look at Gemini and Sagittarius because they're polarities. Gemini is the jack of all trades and the master of none, right?
Uh-huh.
Because the only thing that they need to master is to figure out how all those things are connected. Sagittarius is more niche, it's more focused on like hyper specialization. So I think how we're going to build those bridges are exactly what you're saying, where you're like, okay, my niche is social media and I'm going to start doing these things and I'm going to be learning about this. And then you're like, wait a minute, that is connected to now also communication and media. I'm going to learn about media now. So it's going to be, instead of you getting a 4-year degree, it's going to be a 1-year degree, a 1-year degree, and they're going to start adding on top, like
Yeah.
certificates. They're going to start
Yes, like
adding on top,
certificates. Yeah.
like
Yes.
credibility. So you're going to be wearing them like doctors have all the
You know,
symbols at the end of their, all the letters.
I just saw the military that have all those bars. That's what he's talking about. They got
Hmm.
this one bar came from this bar came
Hmm.
from this bar came from this. We're totally on the same wavelength, right? So
Hmm.
you'll build your resume with all of those skills, right? So at the
Hmm.
end, you're proficient in all of these things. You're not just proficient in this thing. That's where we're going, and everything is just going to be moving so quickly that just makes so much sense to me.
Yeah, and it's also going to help with the declining rates of people going not entering college, right? Not being able to afford it. It's going to make
Right, and make it more
education more
affordable.
affordable. Exactly.
And
And
you're in and out in a year. You're in and out in 16 months.
and it'll depend on the specialization, right? Like certain things will need and require more time, but that's for certain people. If you want to be a doctor, if you want to be an engineer, if you like, there are things that require long study, sure, right? But if you are going into a trade, if you're going into like media work, marketing work, it's going to be a lot different. Experience is also going to become really important, I think, too. And it's about finding ways to utilize experience that you've had, even if you've never been in the industry, as crossover experience. Gemini is really good about cross pollination.
Crossover. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Some of the other good things I think that are going to come out of Uranus and Gemini is really people fighting for their freedom of speech, right?
Really?
So Yeah, because we see Gemini rules speech. It rules communication.
Okay,
Uranus is about
right.
revolutionizing that, right? And at some point, Uranus and Pluto are going to try and harmonize with one another and
Uh-huh.
create this really beautiful energy with each other in 2026 and in 2027 that we are going to not want to take it anymore, that we can't say what we want to say, that we can't speak up about what we want to speak up about, and that we are going to find people across the aisle, people with different ideologies, supporting and fighting for people to have their ability to say what they want to
Right.
say.
Right. It's already happening. Tucker Carlson came out and said,
Yes.
free speech is important. This is wrong, right? Like, I mean, already we're like, wait, what's happening? So,
Yeah,
yes,
I
that
know.
is already happening. That is fascinating. But I think that's going to gain steam. I think you're going to see that more.
Mhm.
I think the whole theme is Strange Bedfellows is like
Mhm.
the Venn diagram. Okay, I'm throwing in with you because we both are on the same side of this, topic.
And that's the thing. We're going to find the larger ways in which we connect, not the small, minuscule ways that we are different. And that's kind of what Uranus and Gemini square, so kind of creating this tension between the nodes in Pisces and Virgo, is sort of saying, right? Uranus is like distractions, information, communication. Gemini, excuse me, South node is like prescriptive. What's the small thing? And the North node is like, no, what's the big picture? What actually matters, right? It's about compassion, grace, understanding. Pisces, right, is very ethereal. It's very understanding. It's willing to say, like, okay, we've disagreed before, but you're still human and I'm still human. And as long as you haven't harmed me or anyone else, how do we then build relationships together? I think as people wake up, we have to give them a little bit of grace to welcome them in, because
Right.
that's how we're going to build community.
That's right.
If as people wake up and they're realizing that, oh, maybe I made the wrong choice or I did the wrong thing, and we're like,
Right.
well, no, you can't come and sit with us, that's going to only polarize us further.
That's right.
And we need to unify. That's exactly what Uranus and Gemini is trying to get us to do. We're actually trying to unify through the polarization.
Unify
Enlightened.
through polarization. Wow. No wonder it feels it's so harsh, so
Yes.
like just exacting. Like, what do you want from me? I don't understand, right? They don't
Hmm.
understand, and we don't understand. Neither one of us understand. But I think it's important what you said. If someone shows up and they're like, "Hey, I made a mistake," then we give them grace, right? We're not saying give people grace that are in your face threatening you. That's
No.
not at all. But if they show up and they say, "This, I made a mistake here," and I've told my viewers this all along, don't hit them over the head. It's not the
Hmm.
thing. Sit down with them and say, great, I'm glad. And you know what? Now the best thing for you to do is to get activated, is to call
Hmm.
your congressperson as a Republican and get your voice heard, right?
Hmm.
Don't waste that energy. So I think that's perfect. Perfect.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to realize that I think we are working on transcending labels in all senses of the word, right?
True.
Gemini is a
Blurring the
duality.
lines.
Yeah, so blurring the lines. Gemini is not this or that, it's this and that.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so if we think about even gender ideology, right? Non-binary, we're going to find more people continuing to come
I
forward and saying,
agree.
I don't feel like this or that. I transcend that. Transness also being a part of that, right? The literal transcendence of it all. But then even people being like, I'm not Republican or Democrat. I transcend that. I'm not liberal or conservative. I
Right.
transcend
Wow.
that. So we're trying to find ways to move beyond the binary and actually understand that the more encapsulating thing is the non-binary of it all. And I'm not talking about, in that case, gender ideology. I'm talking about overall arching concept of there not being a binary.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Wow, that's going to be something for us to go through, let me tell you. But I think
Yes.
that's why this is happening, you guys. That's why there's more. It seems to you maybe that there's more trans people. They're simply saying, I'm not going to take it anymore. That
Hmm.
they've always been here, but they've had to fall into line and live a lie. And now they're
Hmm.
saying, no,
It's true.
I'm going to force this issue. And I think some operatives think that the Democrats shouldn't, that it hurts us. But I'm like, no, it doesn't hurt us. This is where
Mm-mm.
we're going. This is, to me, this is evolution, frankly. This is how we're evolving as humans.
The theory of evolution was created during Uranus and Gemini, by the way. So I
Nice.
agree with that statement.
That's
Um,
hilarious.
yeah, and I also believe that you're right. That one of the things that where you trans people are being used as a red herring right now, right?
Yeah.
Because they transcend, they live outside the binary. We think about Uranus and Gemini in the United States chart, right? We prefer polarization because we can control people if they're polarized instead of coming together and being able to transcend that. So when we move beyond that idea, when we break out of the matrix, right? In a sense, and we go that see?
That's hilarious. If you're
So
if you're not watching the screens, he did a hand movement and balloons just popped all over his screen. So that was
oh my
fun.
God, that was fun. But yeah, it's sort of is saying that they're one of the most authentic populations of humanity,
That's
you know?
true. That's actually really true.
And that is why, and we think about Gemini existing between two things, it's the truth and the untruth. And they live in their truth undeterred, unshaken. They are the most authentic. And so
Oh,
they are a mirror to people who aren't living in their truth.
oh,
And
wow.
so what ends up happening, what I think will end up happening is through Uranus and Gemini, hopefully, that we will accept not just their truth, but our truth as a
Our
result,
truth.
and be able to transcend beyond using them as a red herring and actually revere them as the type of people that they are, which is pure
Brave.
divinity. Hmm.
That also makes sense because even during CK, and we don't say certain names around here, but Mr. Kirk, even during his funeral in Arizona or whatever that thing was, um, Grinder had so their truth, right? Like you're
Hmm.
saying that like they're against gays, LGBTQ, trans because they're afraid of their own truth, right? I totally agree with you that as we go forward, this whole idea of sexuality is going to blur. All the lines are going to blur. And
Hmm.
allowing that to happen, that's going to threaten the institution of
Hmm.
marriage or whatever you want to call it, or monogamy or whatever it is. All these institutions are going to start dissolving. This is what the guides have
Hmm.
been saying for 2 years, right? And media has dissolved. We told you, we predicted that, right? But heads up, just a heads up, because this might be shocking. This might feel, abrasive to some people hearing this. And I would just say this is your heads up to just be gentle with the idea, right? That
Hmm.
that even though you might not agree with a certain lifestyle or polyamy or whatever, it doesn't affect you, right? As
Yeah.
long as it doesn't affect you, try to just have a curiosity of, if it's for them, it's for them. If it's not breaking a law, it's not hurting anybody, then I don't really care, which I think the majority of my viewers are like that. But
Yeah.
when you start thinking about your grandkids, then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't know, right? I don't want life to be hard for them. But they chose this. This is their soul path. They're the brave ones that are here to help us
Hmm.
see our truth. I love that.
Yeah. I love that you used the word curiosity. Gemini at its greatest is
It's
curious.
curious. I've been using that word for every video for
And
months.
well, curiosity leads to care. Because if I'm curious, I care about it. I want to care about it. I want to have compassion towards it. I want to understand it, right?
Right, right.
And the reality is that you don't have to intrinsically understand something to have compassion for it, but you can be curious about it and have an open mind. And that's also a gift of Uranus and Gemini, is teaching us how to open, if we're going to transcend the binary, if we're going to transcend whatever, it's having an open mind, right? It's
Yes.
seeing things as they are. And the thing about Gemini is it's so mutable, meaning it's so flexible. It's like wind, it's like air moving through your fingers. You can't capture it. So when you talk about not holding things tightly, literally, you cannot hold things tightly. You have to hold it as if you're trying to capture wind between your fingers, knowing that it's going to pass through and that something new is going to come in as well.
Is that the ethos? Is that the energy of where we're going?
I think that's where we're going, if even if it's temporary,
Okay.
you know? Because after this will be Uranus in Cancer, and suburbia was born under Uranus in Cancer. And we often revere that suburban time frame post World War II as one of the greatest times in American history. It's interesting because during that time, there were a lot of social programs, more than what we have now, that supported families and people to become stronger.
Homeowners. Okay.
Yeah. And homeowners and things like that. So we revolutionized the idea of home, suburbia, right? Everyone was in cities. We revolutionized the idea of a family, right? Because it used to be bigger families, they became smaller, right? We revolutionized the idea of like who's working as well, and starting to like, because women had a taste of working during World War II, then they started to enter the workforce a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. So during the next Uranus and Cancer transit that we're going to have after this Uranus and Gemini, we're going to revolutionize the idea of family completely. This idea of like polyamory, this idea of transness, this idea of the institution of marriage going and changing those structures. That's going to happen because we have to revolutionize what that's going to mean. When what it means is safety, it means community care,
Right.
right? It
Right.
means
Right.
village, we're stronger together.
That's what
It,
I see. Yes.
yeah.
So
So like,
villages of like minded people that
mhm,
protect each other, that whatever.
mhm,
I also think the environment is going to play a role in that.
mhm, mhm,
We're going to be responding to environmental situations.
changes.
Now,
Mhm.
so when does Uranus in Cancer start?
2033, I believe.
Okay. So right
Uh,
after two presidential elections.
yep. It'll dip in 2032 quickly and then fully in 2033.
2033.
So,
Okay.
yep. So we'll have Uranus is in Gemini right now. We'll be here until November 8th of this year because we had a very brief introduction, started July 8th to November 8th. Then in 2026, on I think April 26th, roughly around there, it will enter Gemini for 7 years. So then we will go through, is that two election cycle? We'll go through two election cycles.
Almost two election cycles. So my question briefly is, so we've got a taste of it now. We get the chaos, we got the
Hmm.
swiftness, we got a lot of the things we talked about, but we're going to have a little bit of a respite or a pause, if you will.
Hmm.
What are we going back to, and how might we experience that from
We're going back,
November to April?
we're going back to Uranus and Taurus, which is radically changing our relationship to resources, the environment, sustainability, and
Food.
financial
Okay.
food and financial institutions.
Okay, radically changing our relationship to the environment, earth, food, and finances.
So that was our 2018 to now, basically, was Uranus and Taurus. And we saw, in history, that was the Great Depression, you know, but then everything that came after that and kind of the economic boom that came as a result. So, we're going to see like we've had a lot of economic hardship during Uranus and Taurus just recently, like in the last 7 years, which is true. And we're going to start to course correct. It won't happen in the 6 months at all, but we're going to start to identify where we need to course correct, how we need to change our relationship with these institutions,
Right,
uh, with
right,
creditors, all of
right.
that.
More people power. So you
Mhm.
guys, I don't see a Great Depression happening in this
I don't know.
5 months or whatever it is. What I can see is the grift that's been happening, that is happening, like Enron kind of situation where things were covered up, where
Trading.
where the higher ups, the have
Mhm.
people covered things up, and who ended up really losing were the employees and people's stock, right? So that this is what I can see in the next 5 months, is that the grift that's happening on the presidential level is going to be uncovered. And I think it's going to be shocking. I think it's going to be
Mhm.
very shocking to us, even though some people might say, why now? It's been happening, but for whatever reason, we are able to see it, we're able to digest it, we're able to see the truth of it, and we are shocked. I just feel like that is going to be the major energy that I'm going to feel, along with some up and downs with finances. But mainly, I feel like we're like this. It's almost like a thief has been living in your house. You didn't realize
Mhm.
it. You just didn't realize it. Like people are like, how come you didn't realize it? I don't know. But once you saw it, you had to deal with it.
We're going to realize the true reason behind the tariffs, right? Because Gemini rules trade, but
There
then
you go. There you go.
Uranus is the actual resources that we receive from that. And as government entities start moving money around, we're going to realize, like, and even the insider trading that's
Yes.
happening as well.
Yes.
Pay attention to January and February, specifically February as a month. That's going to be really important around this, I think.
It's all going
Mhm.
to come out. It's sort of like the e-files. It's all
Mhm.
going to come out. And then we have to decide, are we going to let it get back under the rug again, or are we
Mhm.
really going to hold these people accountable? That's what I want you to be thinking about, because we are the people. We call our Congress people. We are the ones that make things happen.
I do think, on a positive, something else that's going to come forward in the next 5 months in some way, or at least as a result of the next 5 months, is Uranus and Taurus brought us more clarity and more public reception to land back, the indigenous movements
Oh,
in
good. Yes.
the US. So it'll be really interesting to see how the indigenous people come forward and really there's what we can revolutionize to give them back the resources that are so truly theirs, right? Or that they were stewards of and that they still are stewards of too. So it'll be interesting. I think that's going to play into some of this with like the resources piece, the food piece in particular, because farming, agriculture falls into that, and we're seeing a lot of farms fail
Yeah,
right
that's right.
now.
That's right. Yep.
And so it's going to take an indigenous presence to
Mm,
reclaim that land and do
mm.
something different with it and make it something that's more fertile, abundant, and fruitful.
Well, that would be the highest vibration.
Yes,
That
it
would be
would
the
be.
highest vibration response, and I hope
It
that
would
that
be.
happens, because that would heal. We have that wounded healer Chiron thing that's also
Mhm.
happening in the United States, which I've talked to my members, viewers about. So that would help us heal that wound, and that's important. So thank you so much, Anthony. So I just want to say that if you guys have watched to the end, you've been spellbound, as I have, because this guy knows his stuff and he's such an amazing communicator. You can find him. I'll leave all the information down in the description below. He has a podcast I'm going to be on. It was the
Mhm.
best interview I've ever experienced in my life. I can't wait for it to come out. It's going to be coming out mid-October. So
Mhm.
you might want to check out that. He's on Substack. That's where his podcast is produced. He's on Instagram. He does have a website. Again, I think is it anthonyperrotta.com?
It's
No,
parada.co.
Perrotta.co. I will leave the information down below. But here's the thing I want you to hear before you click off this video, is that he has a class coming up. And I want to tell you, he was kind enough to give a class to my members. I have an online membership. If you're interested, susanlynnmedium.com. You can learn about it there. But he gave, as part of the membership, I give you guys a class every month. And he gave a class, and people were asking me in the Zoom, in the chat, where did you find this guy? My God, he's amazing. I'm like, I know, I keep all the best people hidden. But you know by now, I bring people that I feel like have a value. I bring people that I really trust on my channel. As I said, I've gotten readings from him. He's tremendous astrology reader. He's really a psychic medium as well. But he has a class coming up, and it's about the nodes. And let me just tell you something, right? Like, he's going to tell you the name of this class, but I'm just going to tell you, if you want to do something powerful for yourself, if you want to help yourself, because we can't help the White House, we can't help these people, we can't help anybody but us. If you want to help
Mhm.
yourself for something like $40 on a Saturday on Zoom, you can meet with this guy right here, and he's going to teach you some of the most important things that you need to know about your astrology. And you don't need to have any astrology information. You don't need to know
Mhm.
zero about astrology. All you need to have is your birth time and your birth date. If you have
Mhm.
those two things, your birth time and your birth date, he's going to unlock. I promise. I'm giving you right now, I'm telling you, if you take this guy's class and you feel like it didn't do it, feel free to email me. Nobody ever does. When I throw the gauntlet down like this, you guys never, ever email me because the spirit guides are like, no, you're safe, Susan. You can say this. So, Anthony, tell us about your class. What's the name?
So the
What did you gave me this? I was like, oh my God, I need this.
yeah, so the class is the nodal class, which is discovering the themes and purpose of your life. And it is going to help people figure out what direction they're moving in, what they can work with, what they need to release and let go. We are going to explore it in history, but also individually. So I'll be talking about your particular nodes that you may have, the particular nodes I may have, how to work with them, what you can do with them, maybe what sort of careers you want, how you can help community, how you can help yourself. It's about unlocking truly the themes and purpose of your particular life. Hmm.
And there's no age limit here. So let's say you're retired. It's not about
Hmm.
retirement. It's why did you come here? Like I'm
Yep.
talking soul level. Like
Yep.
why did you come here? Why did you, incarnate in this life? Because your north node is where you're going, right? And your
Hmm.
south node is where you came from. But it's a little bit more meatier than that. It's more important than that. And I'm telling
Hmm.
you guys, in an hour and a half, you will learn so much. You will be so empowered, and you can see what a good teacher he is. He truly is. So check out his class. Go to his website, sign up. It's worth the price. It's recorded. I'm sure you give the
Hmm.
recording as well. So if you guys
I do.
can't go, like I always tell you, sign up anyway so that you'll get the recording, right? This is powerful. The nodes are probably the most easily accessible, most
Hmm.
powerful information that you can get astrologically.
I agree with that 100%. It gives you this total window into your soul. Truly, it does. And why you do the things you do. It really helps. I've given so many people readings where I've spent half of the reading just talking about the nodes, and people are like, you've just blown my mind because these are things I've never told people before that you see and understand within me. Hmm.
That's powerful, folks. I'm telling you guys, it's a powerful thing. Even if you're 85, if you're 25, it does not matter. It's never too late to have the big light bulb go off in your head.
Hmm.
Because for one thing, when we understand ourselves, we're gentler on ourselves. Oh, that's why. That's why I'm like this. That's why this happened, right? We like to make sense of our lives, and it'll help you do that. So I hope you'll check it out. Check him out on Substack if you're a Substack person. He has a wonderful podcast. He's such a good interviewer on podcast. You really should check it out. And thank you again, Anthony. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for having me here, Susan. You are always unbelievably incredible.
Thank you. Incredible at something, but we don't know what yet. But I'll keep
Ah,
trying. I have the Gemini thing. My North Node is in Gemini.
it's
So
true.
I'm trying the thing. All right, everybody, take really good care. We'll see you again next time.